With more than 6,000 small and micro-cap companies listed, if you're looking for the next apple at the earliest stage, then CHANNELCHEK truly is the orchard. The listed companies support CHANNELCHEK, so it's free for you, the potential investor, to gain access to institutional quality research from FINRA licensed analysts, advanced market data, industry reports, news, and a growing catalog of videos and webcasts. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and register for CHANNELCHEK so you're always up to date on what's going on at the small and microcap data place. Welcome to the virtual Roadshow series presented by CHANNELCHEK. This Roadshow features David Kelley, CEO of Chakana Copper, OTC ticker symbol CHKKF, TSX ticker symbol PERU. Following a formal presentation, he is joined by Mark Reichman, Senior Research Analyst for Noble Capital Markets, a FINRA-licensed SEC-registered broker-dealer, for a Q&A session featuring questions that were submitted by the live audience. You can find Noble's research on Chakana Copper on channelchek.com or by clicking the link in the description. With that, I am pleased to present David Kelley.
I'm David Kelley. I'm President and CEO of Chakana Copper, and I'm happy to give this update on our company and our discovery project in Peru, the Soledad project. This will be an update for existing shareholders, but hopefully it'll also introduce new potential investors into the project and the discovery that we've made. I will be making forward-looking statements, so please be aware of that. I wanted to start by just summarizing the critical aspects of Chakana Copper, and really it comes down to four main parts. It's the management team that's behind the company. I'll talk in a little bit more detail about our strengths and what we bring to the table as a management team. Our share structure and our shareholders are obviously critical in any mining project, and we have Gold Fields as a 20% shareholder in the company, along with a number of other very prominent institutional shareholders. So we have a very strong capital structure and shareholder structure. We're in a very favorable mining district in Peru. We're in the Ancash province, and really location means everything in mining, not just from an infrastructure standpoint, but also from support for mining. And we see that in Peru with the government. And then it really comes down to the asset. Our asset is a high-grade copper, gold, and silver discovery. It's hosted in tourmaline breccia pipes. It's a very, very interesting deposit type with huge upside potential, and I'll take you through the technical details on that today. What we're doing right now, we have a very aggressive 26,000 meter fully funded drill program. It's gone on throughout COVID. It's been very difficult to operate in Peru during COVID, but you know, hats off to our team in Peru that have put this program together and have been able to execute it and keep our employees and contractors and the local communities safe and healthy. I want to take you through the story. The thing to keep in mind is that this is an exploration discovery that will have its first resource out this year in Q4 of 2021. So it's a very exciting time to take a look at what we're doing, what kind of success we've had, and where that will take us with this initial resource. Just a quick look at our share structure here. You see, I mentioned that Gold Fields is in there at about 20%. We have a nice blend between management and insiders owning 17%, institutional shareholders at 26%, and the rest divided between high net worth and retail. You can see our chart there. You know, at the beginning of the year, we were at about 60 cents. You can see the drop off during the Peruvian election cycle. We now have clarity on who the president of Peru will be, and I think that's going to create some stability in the stock markets and companies that are operating in Peru. On the right, we have a table that shows our market cap right at about 34 million. Right now, we have $6.1 million Canadian cash on hand. It's enough to fully fund this drill program and the first resource estimate that we have ongoing at the time. Our management team is, as I mentioned, is quite exceptionally deep in terms of mining and exploration success. I'm joined on the board with Doug Silver and John Black, both geologists and both very, very successful in their own careers. We also have Tom Wharton and Darren Devine on the board, so a lot of financial strength and legal expertise on the board. And I think the team that we bring together, together with our bilingual CFO, Javier Wenzel, and Mario Chirinos, a lawyer in Peru that is our general manager, we bring the capabilities together to maximize the potential of this discovery that we've made. Now, just looking at a map of Peru, you can see Peru is a well-known mining country. As I mentioned, there's multiple world-class mines shown on the map on the right, and these are just the mines that are located in the Miocene mineral belt, which is the age of the deposit that we have made, the discovery that we've made, and it's a similar age to Antamina and Piorina, which are nearby world-class mines in the Ancash province. Antamina is the largest mine in Peru, and Piorina, of course, is a world-class gold deposit. But you can see that they're spread through the north, central, and southern part of Peru, a very prolific, well-endowed part of the Earth's crust in Peru, and I have no doubt that many, many more new discoveries will continue to happen in Peru. It's the right place to be. Within Peru, we're in the Ancash province, and because of Piorina and Antamina, the infrastructure is second to none. There's plentiful grid power in the province. A lot of that grid power actually comes from hydroelectric power. So lots of clean energy generation being done in Peru. The road network, there's established towns that are mine support towns with the key contractors and skilled labor nearby. And there's plentiful water in this part of Peru. So, you know, we don't suffer from lack of water like other parts of South America. The story on Peru is a long story, a long history of mining. They've are now the second largest global producer of copper and silver, which is a very prestigious status to be globally in the mining industry, and that's been through decades of foreign investment in building mines, starting with a very robust mining law. And a climate that attracted foreign investment to come in. And I don't think that's going to change. And we can talk later about, the impact of the latest election. But, this is the kind of thing that happens through decades of development and growth. It's not something that turns on and off with a light switch. It's something that actually develops over time. I expect that to continue. The mining industry is a very, very significant part of Peru's economy. It underpins everything that they do, and I expect that will continue. Copper itself is a great commodity to be investing in. Even before all the clean energy initiatives and electric vehicle proliferation, there was a looming supply gap, and that supply gap was well known. There's two graphs on the right there that show the predicted supply gaps that are coming, and really these supply gaps have to do with existing mines going out of production or their head grades declining, the lack of new discoveries to fill the pipeline, and increasing use and growth in the copper market. So the mines simply can't keep up. So they need new discoveries like we've made and like others are bringing along globally to fill this gap. But on top of that, now you have all the clean energy systems, which is just going to increase that demand even more. Goldman Sachs came out in April and predicted a 600% growth in copper demand by 2030. So that's a really, really significant growth in the demand. Now, focusing more locally in Peru and what's happening there, I think Peru is one of the worst hit countries in the world with respect to COVID. And it's been very difficult to see this. They're actually still going through what's now being referred to as the third wave in Peru, and it's been very, very difficult. And we've worked with the government, with the regulators, with our contractors, with our local communities to put in protocols to protect our employees and contractors in the local communities. And at the same time, we've taken the initiative to try to help the local communities as best we can. We've had multiple rounds of donations, donating medical supplies, COVID test kits, you know, a number of different plans throughout the year, including cooperation with our partner Goldfields in helping to do this, and it has made a difference in the local communities. We also put in our own standalone camp to isolate our employees and contractors from the local communities, just to ensure that we were maintaining that separation. In terms of our local community programs, I'm so proud of our team for putting this program together and carrying this out. And this has gone on throughout COVID, as I mentioned, and it's multifaceted. This is just a glimpse of some of the initiatives. There's many more that aren't shown here, but these have been very, very successful programs. And the community gardening has been something that the locals have really taken to. We're teaching them how to grow additional types of produce in the region that they may have never thought of before. We actually have a horticulture specialist on our team that is running this program. It's been very popular, but you can see the other types of programs that we have, and we'll continue going through our project as we move the project forward. So I'll just focus now on the project itself, the asset, high grade copper, gold, silver discovery. You can see our land position there on the right. It's just over 3,000 hectares. All the symbols on the right are where the deposits sit. These are tourmaline breccia pipes, and I've got some details on what these look like, but all of those symbols are the location of where these deposits are. And some of them have been drilled and many of them have not. We have over 110 targets on the property, and at this point only 15 of those targets have been tested. 23 of those targets are breccia pipes sticking out of the ground. They're really obvious features, but we have multiple other types of data sets: geophysics, geochemistry, alteration mapping, structural mapping, and all of those data sets help us to find these targets. So we're very early stage, at the very early stages of testing this project, but the initial resource, I think, will demonstrate what the potential of these tourmaline breccia pipes can be. So when you look at upside potential, and that's really what you're investing in a discovery story, is how much bigger can this become based on the work that the work that's to be carried out. And it's important to point out the number of breccia pipes. We don't know how many total breccia pipes occur on the property. I mean, there are examples of this exact same deposit type in Arizona in the US that has over 400 breccia pipes associated with the same deep buried intrusion. These breccia pipes are vertically extensive. We've never seen the bottom of a breccia pipe yet. They coalesce at depth and become bigger, and we've already seen that in our drilling. We have some very high grade, exciting late copper mineralization, and there's always the potential that there's a mineralized intrusion sitting beneath these breccia pipes. So the upside potential here is really considerable. In the initial stages of our exploration, starting in 2017, we made the initial discoveries in drilling that was undertaken between 2017 and 2019. We announced and published multiple news releases on the first 4 discoveries, breccias 1, 5, 6, and 7. And this is just a table highlighting some of the grades. I keep saying they're high grade. You can see, hundreds of meters of intercepts in the mineralized breccia here, and breccia 1 in particular is very nice grade. Gold is often in the 1 to 2 or 3 grams range within our drill intercepts. Silver usually around 50 or 60 grams, and then copper at around 1%, even though we see very high ranges in all 3 of these metals in local zones. Breccia 5, a little bit lower grade, but still very nice. Copper in the 0.5 to 0.7 range. Gold 1.3 to 1.8, and silver at about 25 to 30 grams. And of note, breccia 6 and 7 are very, very high in silver, so we're getting hundreds of grams silver in those intercepts. And we attribute that to vertical zoning, metal zoning happening within these breccia pipes. As we go deeper, these likely get more copper rich, because copper is a metal that's usually focused in the higher temperature parts of an ore deposit. And as we go deeper in these breccia pipes, we're getting closer to the intrusion, and the copper grades are normally increasing as we go deeper. So this is just what breccia 1 looks like. It's the one we've done the most work on, and part of that has to do, if you look at the cross section on the right, you can see the surface profile, so it's on a hillside. There's a breccia pipe that crops out at surface. We call that the main zone. It's a really obvious feature, very high grade right at surface. And then you can see that red shape going at depth. Well, when we were drilling out breccia 1 at the main zone, we clipped the very top part of the north zone, which is a completely blind breccia pipe. And that was a very, very exciting development for us, because these breccia pipes are not ones that erupted at surface. There were still probably 2 kilometers of rock above these breccia pipes, and they're only exposed today by uplift and erosion in the Andes. So the important message here is that some of the breccia pipes are exposed by erosion, but not all of them. And if we fortuitously found one breccia pipe by drilling another breccia pipe, you can imagine that the potential for doing that throughout the property is very, very high. So we're really excited about the blind breccia pipe potential. We're doing geophysical surveys to give us an idea of where these occur, and no doubt future discoveries will also involve these types of blind breccia pipes. But that initial intercept in that discovery zone was 13.2 meters of 12% copper equivalent. Really, really exceptional grades in the north zone there. So we continued on in 2020. Last year, we started drilling new targets. We received a permit in June and July of last year that allowed us to expand our drilling into new areas where we had already defined the targets. The first 3 that we tested, Paloma East, Paloma West, Huancrama, again became 3 new discoveries, and you can see the grades there. And we're really excited about Paloma West and Huancrama, really, really exceptional grades there. You know, you can see multiple % copper, multi-gram gold in both of those. They're all open at depth. Paloma East is a very large breccia. It's lower grade overall, but it still has very nice shape, very shallow, and we have some sweet zones within that are higher grade. So all 3 of these we think are going to be very significant in the initial resource estimate. And this is what some of the mineralization looks like from the last 3 discoveries. Well, this is Paloma West and Huancrama. Again, all of the metallic gold mineral there is chalcopyrite. That's our dominant copper mineral. It's where most of the world's supply of copper comes from, that one mineral in particular, chalcopyrite. But really spectacular breccia textures, very, very high grades, as you can imagine, which is the total sulfide content in those photos. So this is the Google Earth view, just looking to the north. We're not even showing the south half of the property here, where we have multiple other targets. The red circles represent the breccia pipes that we've drilled in those initial 3 years, 2017 to 2019, and then Paloma East, Paloma West, and Huancrama in green, where we're focusing our infill and resource drilling there. And then all of the other symbols they're really obvious targets. And then if I were to overlay the other targets that we have, the map would just, or that image would just be littered with the different targets. You can also see on this diagram, or this image, an operating mine immediately to the east. So this is really, you can think of this as a brownfields discovery. It's a discovery of high-grade mineralization in an established mining district with great infrastructure. They run that mine on grid power. There's public road access. There's plentiful water. You can see a water reservoir in the upper right-hand part of that image. So you couldn't find a better place to make a new discovery. If we're looking at that same hillside, this is now going into our 3D modeling. These are showing the shapes of the breccia pipes as they go at depth. We've never seen the bottom of a breccia pipe yet. They're all open. We just, chop them off at the bottom of the model and just say open. But you can see how they sit in the hillside, and then all the rest of those dark red shapes are shapes that represent the surface outcrop of untested tourmaline breccias, mineralized tourmaline breccias right at surface, and they're all over the place. So it's really exciting from an exploration standpoint. This is overlaying the gold geochemistry and soils, very robust soil anomalies right at surface. Anything that's yellow and hotter colors are significant occurrences of gold in soil, which means that those are additional targets to test within all the other data sets that we have worked up. This is just a diagram showing the depth extent that we've drilled the breccia pipe so far. In breccia 6, we've got mineralized breccia down to 824 meters depth, 490 meters from surface at breccia 1, and various other depths. So as I mentioned, upside potential is huge when you think about chasing these known breccia pipe. We don't have to find anything new. We just keep drilling these out from underground, and they'll keep adding additional resources. And then with all the other targets to test, we'll be adding new mineralized breccia pipes to the inventory. We have a very impressive late copper enrichment style of mineralization, and we see it inside the breccia pipes. And very importantly, I've seen this outside the breccia pipes. And I have to tell you, 90% of our drilling has been focused on the breccia pipes themselves. We very rarely step out and drill something outside of the breccia pipes. Well, when we do, we occasionally hit mineralization, and sometimes it can be really spectacular, like you can see in the two bottom core boxes there. There's 5 meters of 4.6 grams gold, 5% copper, and 275 grams silver outside the breccia pipes. The mining aspect has been looked at by a number of mining engineers. We've had Goldfields mining engineer look at this, and other mining experts, and they all conclude the same thing. These breccia pipes are ideally suited for sub-level mining. The breccia pipes are vertically oriented. They're very closely spaced. They're on a hillside, which means that you can drive tunnels in from the hillside within 250 meters. In most cases, you can be on a high-grade mining face. You can then ramp down and intersect other breccia pipes and interconnect your underground mining infrastructure. So the mineability of these breccia pipes is very straightforward. Sublevel mining is one of the most common underground mining techniques used globally, and we think it would work very well at Soledad. And just to point out, we've not done a lot of work on the south side of the project yet, but we also have these beautiful outcropping tourmaline breccia pipes, very high-grade gold right at surface, which is really our best pathfinder. We see that the copper is usually leached out. So if we get this kind of a gold response at surface, we know that we're on to another mineralized breccia pipe, and there's multiple breccias in that same area. So we expect that this area will continue to blossom out, much like the north side of the property has. So just to bring it back as a summary, we bring the management team together. Our investors are exposed to all three metals, the great copper story, but also the precious metals that come with it. We're fully funded right now. We're very aggressive with our drilling. We're over 55,000 meters drilled to date on the project, and we have our first initial resource, which will no doubt be one of many subsequent resource estimates to come out as we continue to explore, discover, drill out, and add those resources to the resource inventory. So I'll turn it back to Mark now for some questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, David. My name is Mark Reichman, and I'm the Noble Senior Analyst who provides research coverage of Chakana Copper. So David, how will the outcome of the recent presidential election in Peru influence the business climate for mining?
Well, Mark, my view is that the results of the presidential election will not have a significant impact on the direction and the status of mining in Peru. And I answer that question mainly from looking historically of what has happened in the last 20 years in Peru when after various presidential elections. I mean, even in the last year, there have been 3 different presidents in Peru just due to political upheavals. And so, mining has demonstrated itself to be very resilient in Peru. It's a very well-endowed country with respect to its natural resources, and those natural resources have attracted huge foreign investment over the last several decades. So when you have that kind of industry underpinning your economy, it's important to all governments that come into into the administration in Peru and run the country. I don't expect the administration under Castillo to do anything that would adversely affect mining. I think mining is a very important part of their plan to provide benefit to the poorest people in the country, and that's going to be played out with consultation and discussion and dialogue with the companies that operate in Peru. And our view is that when you look globally, copper is in demand. It's going to be even more demand in the future, and discoveries like this are needed. And mining in Peru is a well-established industry, and I think it will continue to be so in the future.
You mentioned the completion of a maiden resource estimate during the fourth quarter. What areas of the project will it include?
Yeah, Mark, we're getting more clarity on that now. That initial resource will include 6 breccia pipes. Those are the ones we're focusing on. And it'll cover from surface down to about 300 meters. And as I mentioned in the presentation, all the breccia pipes are open at depth. So we know we can expand those in the future with deeper underground drilling. And we can expand the resource by adding new breccia pipes to that, of which we have, numerous very, very high quality targets to test. But that resource, I hesitate to even call it a maiden resource, because oftentimes a maiden resource will be kind of an inferred resource that might paint about a 75% accurate picture of what the ultimate resource is. That's certainly not the case here. I'm calling it an initial resource. We might call it a phase 1 resource, because it's only going to be based on 6 out of 23 breccia pipes, 6 breccia pipes out of 110 targets on the property, all open at depths that we've drilled. So it's going to be an indication of what the economic potential can be of these breccia pipes, but the investors can expect to see many subsequent upgrades to that resource estimate as the district as we continue to drill and test and define these breccia pipes.
So I think in the past you've mentioned that the target is 10 million tons at, say, 2% copper, based on drilling those 6 breccia pipes to a depth of 300 meters. While that might represent a fraction of the Soledad's resource potential, are you confident at this point that that is a reasonable target?
Yeah, I mean, it is a reasonable target, and there was nothing sophisticated about that coming up with that number. It was really based on where we felt if we could put together a resource that was in that ballpark, would that be material for incentive to develop a new mine in Peru? And if you look around and you look at the quality of assets that are under operation in Peru and the kind of grades that are being mined and the capabilities in country to build and develop and operate these mines, 10 million tons of high grade in Peru is a great target. Right? If you can achieve that, all other things considered, you can be pretty certain that you found something that potentially can be a mine in the future. So that's really was the underpinning of, we didn't want to come out with let's put a resource out on the first breccia pipe and then the second, and then move that small resource towards a point that maybe someday it would reach that threshold where it could become a mine. We wanted to hold off and wait and demonstrate this multiple breccia pipe concept, closely spaced, great mining characteristics in an established mining district. We wanted to wait until we got to that. Now, I don't know if we're going to hit the 10 million tons. We could get 8 million tons at 2.5% copper equivalent, or we could get 11 million tons at 1.8. I don't know where it's going to come in. It all depends on how it comes together with all the drilling. We're drilling 24/7 with 2 rigs right now. We're getting about 3,000 to 3,500 meters a month. So we're adding data, information, and knowledge rapidly. And we don't have I don't know exactly where that resource is going to come in, but it's going to be significant in my mind. It's certainly going to catch the attention of mine developers and builders. And we know that our partner Goldfields is very excited about the work that we've been doing and the results we've been getting. So that's where we're at, and I'm excited to get to that point this at the end of this year and get that resource out.
So Chakana has confirmed 23 breccia pipes at surface with 110 total targets. Would you discuss your plans for future resource expansion?
Yeah, so we'll need to raise money. We've got enough money to get us through this initial resource estimate, and then we will need to raise more money to advance the project after the resource estimate, and that will include a lot more exploration drilling. We're working really hard on a permit for the south side of the project, and that's well advanced. And we're also doing a very exciting gradient array and it's called an offset IP. It's kind of a 2.5 dimensional IP survey. It's a deeper seeking IP survey, and that's being done over the entire property from north to south within the extent of known mineralization. And we've already started to see preliminary results from that. It's very, very exciting. We've dialed in and figured out now how to apply geophysics to really effectively define these breccia pipes, and not just the surface ones that crop out at surface, but also blind targets to go with all the other data sets that we have. So I'm really excited about the future exploration potential of the project. The 110 targets is certainly going to grow. We've already seen that just in some of the preliminary results that have come out. So I expect there to be at least 2 years of really hard exploration to test these targets and to continue to advance and add to the resource potential.
So what areas are targeted for exploration drilling?
Well, right now it's everything on the north half of the property. Basically, the view that I showed in the presentation of the Google Earth view showing the north half, it's basically a mountain that comes from the valley up to the top. Everything in that area is fair game. We have a fairly robust, sophisticated ranking scheme where we put all of our data sets into that, and we rank each target based on its merit of what's the surface exposure like, what's the size potential, what's the rock geochemistry, what's the gold grade in rocks, what's the soil geochemistry around it, what's the geophysical expression, and we rank those, and that's how we come up with 110 fully ranked targets. That'll probably grow to 150, maybe even 200 targets when we integrate the most recent geophysics that's being done, and it'll take us a couple of more months to finish that geophysics, but that's the approach. And the targets we'll be testing generally are the ones that are really obvious. They're the big breccia pipes that stick out of the ground and have some very strong gold in rock samples right at surface. Those are the ones we're most confident in. But as I showed in the presentation, we also have blind breccia pipes, which can be very high grade, and they don't even crop out at surface. You don't even know that you're there. You can stand right above the north zone of breccia 1 and not even know that there's a high grade breccia pipe 125 meters below the surface. So those targets, even though they might rank lower because they don't have the surface expression, they're also very important. And you can't get caught into the trap in this business of saying, well, your top 10 targets are where, if you're going to find anything, it's going to be in your top 10 targets. It could be target number 50 that blows open a new discovery that's bigger than anything we've even seen to date. So it's you just have to do good science and good exploration work on the property and be persistent, and that's really what pays off in the end.
So David, what would you expect in terms of the metals mix?
Well, if I had a crystal ball, I'd pull it out right now, Mark, and try to answer that. It's a difficult question. I mean, it's really interesting. We've seen 5 kilograms of silver in our drilling, and we've seen 42 grams of gold in our drilling, and we've seen 15-20% copper in our drilling. So and these are isolated zones, or not isolated zones. They're actually they're zones within longer runs of mineralization, but they're they're smaller zones, and so we know that there are pockets of really exceptional high grade. I mentioned that our breccia pipes are zoned. We think they're zoned laterally in the district, and they're also zoned vertically within each individual breccia pipe. And because of the erosion, we're seeing, different elevations exposed, and some of the breccia pipes have had maybe 1 or 2 or 300 meters eroded off, and others haven't been exposed yet. So there's a lot of complications in answering your question, but in general, what we have seen is that the tops of the breccia pipes are generally precious metal rich. Gold and silver is dominant, and copper might only be there in small quantities, like maybe only even 0.1% copper. As we go deeper, there's a general trend to go less gold, still really strong, increasing copper, very strong silver still, and then we have zones at depth that are dominantly copper with minor gold and silver. It's still very significant economically. If you have a 0.5 gram of gold and 30 grams of silver going with 1 or 2% copper, it's still a very important byproduct, but it may not be the dominant, value in the rock at that depth. So we think it's going to change as we mine vertically in these breccia pipes, but it's a difficult question to answer.
And would you elaborate on the terms and obligations under your various option agreements, and also maybe discuss any royalty agreements as well?
Yeah, so in our corporate presentation on the website, we have a slide that summarizes the 3 commercial agreements that give us, the consolidated project that we have is based on 3 different agreements. 2 of those are purchase option agreements that as long as we meet the obligations of those agreements, we end up with 100% mineral rights. And then the 3rd agreement is an agreement with Barrick where they have a one-time back-end right to come in and reacquire the ground that's been optioned to us, or it's still in their name, but they have an opportunity to back into the project, but just on those claims. It doesn't affect the other 2 deals that we have, and there's royalties associated with each one of those. And if you look into that corporate presentation, if you were to buy down all the royalty rights that we have, the bulk of the project sits with a 0.5%, 1.5% NSR royalty. There are other parts, smaller parts, that have 1 and up to 2%. But they're minor parts of the overall concessions. So the royalty structure is very clean. We've worked very hard to keep that way because, as you know, royalties can be a very significant burden to projects, and we didn't want that to be the case. So we've worked really hard to get 100% ownership of the mining rights and to minimize the impact of the royalties. Now, we already own a 1% royalty over the majority of the northern part of the project, and that royalty could be vended. We wanted to acquire that to give us flexibility with future financings and that type of thing, but it's a very clean structure.
Well, David, I hear a lot of exploration companies talking about strategic partners or strategic investors, and you have a very high quality one in Goldfields. Could you talk a little bit about how involved they are in this project?
Yeah, I guess I'll start by just saying, when we, in 2017, 18, and 19, when we were making the initial discoveries and putting all the news out on those discoveries, our door was beat down from multiple major, not just copper companies, but some of the world's biggest gold producers as well. And but they all had a different objective. A lot of them just wanted to do a joint venture, and we just simply wouldn't do that. This is our baby. This is our sole asset. We're 100% focused on this asset, and we're not about to just joint venture it out and sit back and let somebody else come in and do the work on it. The other issue is that many people think that there's potentially a porphyry system driving these tourmaline breccia pipes, and there are 2 different types of breccia pipe systems. There's those that are related to porphyries and those that are not. don't really know. We have opinions. Some people have very strong opinions about this, but it's not our focus. Our focus are on these high-grade breccia pipe that are at surface. They're the obvious thing to go after first. But you know, a lot of the big companies that have come after us and talked to us and shown interest have been interested in trying to figure out what sits at depth. And is it a big giant porphyry? Could it be block caved? Is it high grade? Does it have the kind of metal mixture seen in the breccia pipes? And you know, that's a very interesting concept, and you know, it's something that needs to be tested with time. But you know, we didn't want to get distracted with that type of approach. And what we really loved about Goldfields is they came in and said, you know, we love what you're doing with the breccia pipes. We're very competent underground miners ourselves. We're not, you know, distracted at all or put off at all by the potential for underground, high-grade underground mines. We're good at that as well as open pit mines. And we also, you know, we're intrigued by what the depth extent of these breccia pipes are and what sits beneath them. So it was very compatible with their view of the project with ours, and that we could stay focused on the breccia pipes and not, you know, get distracted with, you know, going after a deep porphyry. You know, that we're with each one of these breccia pipes that we drill, and the deeper we go and the data sets like this new geophysical survey, we are understanding so much more about this mineral system. And you really have to approach it from a mineral system standpoint, which involves a lot of different aspects of geology. It's not just where is the gold, copper, and silver. It's how did this thing form? What's the age of it? We've dated. We have 13 radiometric dates on the district now, so we pinned that down. We can now relate what's happening at Soledad to Piarina, Antamina, and all the other mineral systems in the whole region, and that's a really powerful knowledge base to work from.
And then lastly, I know the near-term focus is the completion of the initial mineral resource estimate. But how are you thinking about the 2022 exploration and drilling program?
Yeah, that's a good question, Mark, because, you know, we could do a PEA on that resource, and, you know, the board will need to make that decision. It's not, we haven't gotten to that point yet. So one path is that we could do a PEA on the initial resource that we put out. No doubt we will raise more money and be really aggressive on additional drilling and exploration target testing. And each time we get another breccia pipe that looks like it could contribute materially to an upgraded resource, then that'll go into definition drilling. So I kind of see next year being similar to this year. I'd like to see a 25,000 meter drill program, heavily focused, probably more so next year on exploration drilling. And then, but, you know, still the most promising discoveries that come out of that have, you know, a fully funded program set up so that we can put another rig onto resource drilling for those new discoveries. So I think it'll be very similar to this year. Obviously, we're doing more studies. We're doing geometallurgical work now, and that will continue. And you know, we're starting to do you know, engineering studies and other aspects of keeping the project advancing. But next year, I would like to see more focus on exploration, new target testing, and still bringing along the infill drilling. But let's really step out and see how big this system can be. You know, I'm often asked, how big do you think Soledad can be? And you know, it really just depends on how many breccia pipes we can get in. I mean, we've never seen the bottom of a breccia pipe yet, right? So right there, you could potentially double your resource, right? If we can go underground and take it from 300 to 600 meters with underground drilling, that's a double on your resource. So you ask, is 10 million tons a reasonable target? I think it's a reasonable target. If we get 8, if we get 11 or 12, I don't know. But if you can double that by going underground, that's a huge multiple right there. We could double it again by finding another 6 breccia pipes in the top 300 meters and then going underground on that. So there's a potential 4 times increase in the resource, the initial resource, simply by going underground and finding 6 more new breccia pipes. So 12 pipes in the inventory and taking those underground could give you a 4x multiple on the initial resource. So, I think that's very important. But we've got to really get aggressive on the exploration, testing multiple targets. We've got so many targets to test, and that will be the focus of next year's program.
David, thank you so much for joining us today and helping us gain a better understanding of the company's story.
Thank you, Mark. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us for this virtual roadshow presentation brought to you by ChannelChek. View our YouTube channel for more video content, including C-suite interviews, virtual roadshows, and conference presentation replays. New content is added regularly, so subscribe below to stay up to date. Visit channelchek.com or click the link in the description to access equity research, news, and advanced market data on this and 6,000 other small and microcap companies.